Hi, I'm Mark Miller. I'm here with Katie Middendorf. We're the managing partners of the Signature Group at Century 21 in Fairlawn, Ohio. Welcome to our series we're calling Beyond the Block. In this series, we want to sit down and talk to you about what's really happening in real estate, market trends, investing strategies, and the conversations that we think buyers, sellers, and homeowners should be having to make confident, informed decisions. So let's get started. All right, Katie. Well, so this is our very first episode. So I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to do a quick get to know each other kind of video and let people kind of know a little bit who we are and kind of what we do here at the Signature Group.
Love it.
So I think the perfect place to start is at the very beginning. So let's talk about how we found our way into real estate, what got us started, what we like, things like that.
Sure. I think one of the things that I tell so many people who I have the opportunity to meet and engage with is that my first career was in sales and marketing, and it was quite successful. And I met my husband, who was at the time 25 years ago flipping homes and it wasn't even a thing. It wasn't on HGTV. It wasn't anywhere. And I met him and we were talking and he told me what he did. And I immediately in my brain thought to myself, that's nice. He's really cute. I'm glad he bought me a drink, but he's a no because I need a person with a real job, as my father has told me numerous times throughout my young life. And lo and behold, 2 years later, we end up getting married. And my life starts to slowly become more and more real estate focused. The market crash happened and his flipping turned into purchasing long-term holds and a rental portfolio. And as we started having children, my sales and marketing career became a little too demanding. So I had to back off, reached out to one of our friends who's at Century 21 and said, hey, can I come work with you? He said, by all means, please join us at Century 21. So I did, and the rest is history.
That's really interesting. My path into real estate couldn't be any more different. I actually started in the printing industry, doing computer stuff and IT type work, and we ended up as we had kids and grew a family, we kind of had always talked about having a stay-at-home parent, and the way life worked out when we had our second child, it turned out that I was the one that became a stay-at-home parent, which was great. But you exit off of life of a career, and then you start thinking, okay, so eventually I'm going to have to get back into the world. But how does that look like when you still have, you're still kind of a stay-at-home parent? And I had a friend who was a real estate agent who was like, this it could be a good opportunity for you because it gives you some flexibility. You can grow your business as your kids get older, and as your time frees up. It's really up to how hard you want to work. Fast forward to a few years later, and I finally decided to pull the trigger, get my license, and that's when I met you. Which
Yep.
I was at a couple other brokerages a little bit, kind of trying to find my way. We found out that we were in the same neighborhood, and I was like, well, this just makes a little bit too much sense. And at the time, you had your own group called the Middendorf Group.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, can I be part of that? Which I did. And then, life kind of just took over from there, and the snowball started rolling. Which kind of actually leads us into the next point, which is how did we end up, building the Signature Group? I know we started with the Middendorf Group, and we actually both started separately. You ended up with the Middendorf Group, and now we're at the Signature Group. So let's talk a little bit about how that path kind of came to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so cool. Like we hear so many times in life, and I hate to sound so cliche, but where you are is never where you anticipate to be 100% or exactly, and I think the signature group is a beautiful example of that. We created the Middendorf group. My idea was to lead a bunch of selected and careful realtors, through the process of building their books of business and helping other people. And as it so happened, real estate, is not for everybody. And the most unexpected person, you came along and said, "Hey, can I join?" And I love the idea of it, again, because we're neighbors and I could tell you cared so much as well. But the other folks fell off, and it really just came to me and you. And in looking at this, we said, how much do we want to be involved? Do you want to step up? Do we want this to be more of a partnership? I'm always all for a partnership when I know that we're putting in equal efforts. And so we went from just the Middendorf group, because Miller is as important as Middendorf, right? We actually transitioned for a short period of time to Miller Middendorf
That's right.
because it was just the two of us and we liked it that way for a while. And I think it helped us get our legs under us, really identify who we were going to be as agents and brokers and how we were going to serve. How can we show we care? How do we participate in the community? All of these things. And when we got our legs under us, when we felt grounded, we said, okay, now how can we serve other realtors and make it not be about Mark Miller and Katie Middendorf, but also about serving more people in the community, serving in bigger ways, and also serving other realtors and industry professionals who wanted to, join in and make our movement bigger, I guess. Does that sound about right? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it was a fortuitous event that, kind of everybody fell off. And I do think that,
Get off the wagon.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of, sometimes you have to take a step back and kind of, like you said, get your feet underneath you a little bit. I think that gave us the opportunity to get to know each other, because we were working on everything, just the two of us. And, from there, that kind of gave us that basis of saying, okay, so now we have the volume that as we were growing our volume, especially in the investment world, we started seeing that, you kind of come to a point where you have a couple options, right? You can hire a like an assistant or something like that and keep everything for yourself, or you can say, let's take this business and expand it thoughtfully to where if we bring in another agent to work with us, that agent can handle, X amount of work, and that gives us a little bit more free time to go out and do more community-based things, get our name out there. And I think that's one of the coolest things about how about how our growth plans are, is that we're not, looking to bring every agent in the world in and just, build this massive group of people to funnel, work under the name of the signature group or whatever. It's really more about building an actual business that better serves the community, better serves our clients, to just give everybody the best experience they possibly can, not just volume. So I think it's really cool. So, that kind of segues into just kind of what the signature group is about. What are our kind of goals? How do we think about real estate? Just, kind of just an overview of how we feel about real estate and our clients and how we work.
That is such a loaded question. I think it's just so broad. I mean, how do we think about real estate? I believe truly that real estate touches every person, every industry, every life in some way at some point, if not at multiple points throughout, let's say, a human's life. Whether you're, you know, living in a home or apartment with your family or your parents, what that dynamic looks like, where you are location wise, all of that. As you become an adult, where do you want to live? What does young adult living look like? At what point is it smart, if ever or when, to invest in your own home? Or what can you do with your passive income if you're not, an investor per se? You have a corporate job or what have you, or a blue collar job. Where do you put your money? How do you intelligently engage in real estate? Well, again, whether if it's for you or if it's is part of your investments. If you're a business owner, do you rent your space? Do you buy your building? Do you operate your space? Is it a mixed use? And these decisions are in front of you and around you all the time, as a consumer, as a business person, as an investor, whatever it is, whether you see it or not. So I do think that awareness and knowledge does empower. And with
Sure.
empowerment, you can make better decisions. So the way we approach real estate is through educating, because we want to help people understand and make intelligent decisions.
Sure. I mean, I think, to kind of piggyback on that, I think this year is really kind of a year of clarity for us in the sense that you know, we took the time to really do some reflection over the end of the year. And part of that, came out where it was pointed out to us that the word you just said, education, really kind of came to the forefront of what we were talking about. And it was like, that kind of that light bulb moment of, what, that's it. It's like we're not teaching classes. We're not, we don't, there's not a script, but the idea of education in real estate is really what we're both good at and really what we're both passionate about. And whether that's a first-time home buyer or an investor or a seasoned investor, there's always, it's an ever-changing environment. You're never going to know everything that there is to know, and you don't really know what you don't know, and
100%.
and I think that, like, especially for your buyers, your home first-time buyers, even buyers that have lived in a house for 20 years and now they're selling and they want to sell that house and buy a condo or rent or move to
Right.
Florida or whatever, they haven't done the process in so long that it's all changed. We work with a lot of clients who are still thinking, oh, well, I have to, like, sign my documents on a piece of paper, and that's not, that has been gone for years. And so, it's like that. I think that education, along with clarity, and just kind of helping people make a decision that's really going to be one of their biggest decisions of their life. Even if it's you're buying a $40,000 house that you want to flip or turn into investment, like it's a big choice, and being able to be there with them, help them to see pros and cons, pitfalls, through an honest lens is really kind of where we shine.
That makes so much sense. And I think synopsizing that is, how do we look at real estate? In my mind, we look at it from where our client or our customer needs we meet them where they're at. We look at it from the lens that's going to find them the most success, whatever lens that may be. So first we help them identify what that is, then we help them navigate that expertly. And so it's not about how we look at it, it's about how we can help our clients look at it successfully.
Yeah. So, and I think, kind of leading to the next point, I know we kind of keep bringing up this, we talk about investors a lot.
Yeah.
So, how do you see kind of the reason why we work with investors so much? Do you feel like that's a focus of our business, or do you feel like maybe they're a smaller part of the business? What are your kind of thoughts on that?
Well, I think when you're talking investors, you're like getting into like my special zone of expertise, just because it's become a natural evolution for me. We became investors like long-term hold investors by default. Before that, we were short-term investors. I was by marriage. And so and then as real estate was coming out of the crash in 2007 and 2008, and shortly after that, and we started recovering, that's really when I became licensed. And we had a lot of new investment, new styles of investment coming on as an answer, as a response to that. And people needed assistance navigating that. So I organically fell into, with my experience in property management, that side of thing. And as we developed our property management arm, it was one just feeds the other. And through life experience and necessity, and we've really learned so much about navigating investments. And I would say, not generally, I will never be one of those people who's going to speak to how you should invest across the United States, because I live in Northeast Ohio and I can advise to Northeast Ohio, very well. But I really can't advise to other markets, and that is something that I feel a lot of people fall prey to on the internet. I don't want to digress too much, but I do think that's a huge problem with these, like, many people who just speak in these broad brushstrokes, and they think that they can apply it to so many markets, and that's not true. Northeast Ohio is a bit unique, but I do love working with investors in this area. Again, whether it's somebody who's looking for a small single family home or getting started on their journey, or who has 10 or 15, or maybe somebody who's aging out and they know that they need to find the right way to exit, or they've purchased a few properties and they recognize that management really isn't for them, and how do they find the right people who are going to operate these assets for them, because that's different than a stock asset, for example. So there's lots of different ways that we can help investors, and that kind of gets me going. Like, I really am excited about that part. It lights me up. And I also feel that by helping investors operate in a manner that will help them, it also helps the asset, which then helps our community. And that's exactly where we live. So it's not just helping with money, it's helping, it's a holistic approach. And that to me is just very rewarding. And I can help with other things, but I love working with investors personally.
Yeah, I mean, I to build on that a little bit, I think, we should go ahead and say that, CRPM Property Management is a business arm that you specifically
Hmm.
operate. So you
Yes.
do have that foothold in the investor world, which, makes it super important to you. Um, I feel like, what's kind of cool about the Signature Group too, and just in how we're building it, is that we're not truly focusing on trying to do everything all the time either. It's like kind of that
Right.
that idea of let's bring in specialists that, you know, want to work just with residential, because that
Hmm.
person is going to be totally focused on providing the best possible service for a residential client. And then, if we have another agent that wants to focus solely on investment, you know, can you, Mark Miller, join up on me with that and just kind of help me through the process, which is what I think is kind of really cool about the way our team is beginning to grow. And I think we should take the time to also say that right now our team is 4 people. Katie and I are
Yeah.
the team leaders. And then we have another agent also named Mark. His name is Mark Platts. And we have a fourth agent. His name is Justin Decker. Justin.
So I would love to hear from you, Mark. What does Beyond the Block mean? Like, how did this get created? And I think that while I'm full sport on this, this is your baby. So I want to hear your thoughts and
Yeah.
how your brainchild was born.
As you go through business, you have ideas that work, you have ideas that fail. And last year, 2025 and 2024, we had a 2-year run of an idea that I had that was called RENet, which the intention of that was it was a networking group that would meet once a month to give community members access to come in and talk to different people in real estate. The next phase was starting, an email newsletter, which will give you information about how you can subscribe to that. also. But kind of the idea of beyond the block then is really a step forward from this RENet idea. We live in our area, we work in our area, we get happy in our zones, and we want to step out from that. So I think that one of the things that we're working on seeing is bringing in people from other industries. So kind of similar to RENet. So we can bring in a title company, we can bring in a lender. I mean, I think it would be really cool to talk to home inspectors or plumbers or whatever, and just get some perspectives that we're not used to seeing every day.
I'm so excited that we have it as part of a group, and so many ways you contribute, but that is just a huge one. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So,
yeah.
we're getting ready to finish up here, but I think, the last thing that we should just kind of touch on is what we kind of see for this series moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, my brain starts spinning, and it goes all kinds of directions. But I was thinking about it even this morning before we met, and some of the obvious answers. Let's bring on some people to help unravel banking and financing mysteries. Some of the biggest, looming questions, things that scare people about either investment or home buying, or what does it look like transitioning from one home to another. I had a conversation with a friend also today. Just she and her husband are looking at possibly selling their existing house and moving to a bit of a smaller space, but they have a dilemma. They don't necessarily want to go with less space for the same amount of money. And so we talked through, it's not just the square footage, but there's also other elements that are of value to the house. Like that is a very specific conversation that I think a lot of people will benefit from. And then also, what does it look like for them to take their equity and turn it into a down payment? And how do they successfully navigate coming off a COVID loan at 3% into a 6% mortgage without feeling a pinch there as well? Like, how do you develop what you have over that? So I would like to talk not just to lenders about these ideas, but then also about homeowners and maybe some of our past clients as well. I think like real life experiences, successes, fails, pain points, friction, all of that, just keeping this really real is something that I'm really looking forward to. So I think it's going to help other people feel more comfortable knowing that they're not alone, but it's also going to, I think we're going to gain some real insight from this. So I'm pretty excited.
I think honestly, this video is a pretty good kickoff. We're not, don't expect super formal,
no.
There's
nothing about us that's formal.
We do tend to go off the rails, and you'll see that as we go forward. We're going to try and do as little editing as we possibly can because frankly, we don't have time. But I do think I love that idea of being able to talk to customers. We're just going to like you said, we're going to try to keep it real and have as interesting of conversations as we can, and hopefully you take something from it. So with that being said, if you found this conversation helpful, I know this is more of a get to know us, but if you find this conversation helpful, we'd love it if you subscribe to this channel. You can follow along. We're going to try and do one of these videos every week. That's our goal for right now. If it takes off, maybe we'll do it more. If you guys have a specific question or anything that you think would be interesting for us to talk about, we'd love to have a comment, or you're welcome to reach out with us. There's going to be a link in our bio of how you can get to our website and subscribe to our newsletter and connect with us that way. So with that being said, have a great week.